All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're talking about a man who didn't just lead Athens. In many ways, he was its golden age. A politician, a general, a patron of the arts. This is the story of the one and only Pericles. But to really understand the height of his power, we can't start with the glory. No, we have to go back to a moment of absolute chaos. The year is 461 BC, and let me tell you, the air in Athens is thick with tension. The city is on a knife's edge. Think about this. The city's top conservative leader, a guy named Cimon, has just been ostracized. That means he's exiled for 10 years. Gone. Almost immediately after that, the leader of the democratic faction, Ephialtes, is assassinated, murdered. Just like that, both sides of the political aisle are completely leaderless. What you have is a massive power vacuum at the very top of one of the most powerful cities in the world. And the question on everyone's mind is simple. Who is going to step up and seize this moment? And this right here is where our main character walks onto the stage. A man who looked at this crisis not as a disaster, but as the opportunity of a lifetime. Now, what's so wild about Pericles is his background. You'd never peg him as a champion for the common person. I mean, this guy was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He's an aristocrat, his dad was a famous war hero, and he's even related to the guy who literally invented Athenian democracy. Not exactly your typical man of the people, right? And yet, that's exactly what he became. So how on earth did this nobleman outplay everyone to become the unofficial ruler of Athens? Well, his main rival was Cimon, the established leader of the conservatives. Cimon was a big deal war hero, he was friendly with Sparta, and he was all about tradition. Pericles played a totally different game. He was the ambitious, calculating new face of the democratic faction, and he was pushing for reforms that would give more power to the people. It was a classic political showdown. And Pericles won it with a brilliant political knockout. He didn't use swords, he used words. Through clever political attacks and accusations in the public assembly, he slowly turned the people against Cimon, and eventually, they voted to ostracize him. With his main rival literally forced to leave the city, the path to power was now wide open for Pericles. So, Pericles has near total control. What does he do with it? He launches one of the most ambitious projects in ancient history. He decides to turn Athens from just another city-state into a breathtaking empire. So how'd he pull it off? Well, it was a slow and steady process. It all started with something called the Delian League, basically a big club of Greek city-states who banded together to defend against Persia. But pretty soon, Athens is calling all the shots. Then they start telling their allies, hey, you know what? Don't bother sending ships anymore. Just send us the money instead. And for the final move, they moved the entire league's bank account to Athens. Just like that, a defensive alliance had become an Athenian empire. And we're not talking about a small operation here. We're talking more than 100 different city-states, all across the Aegean Sea, each one forced to send a river of silver to Athens every single year. So what do you do with that kind of cash flow? Well, Pericles uses it to fund one of the greatest public works programs in history. He starts rebuilding Athens, making it the most beautiful city in the world. And the crown jewel of this whole project? The Parthenon, a magnificent temple to the glory of Athens, built with the money taken from its so-called allies. But Pericles wasn't just about marble and gold. He had a powerful vision, an idea of what Athens was supposed to be. And he laid it all out in what might be the most famous speech of antiquity, his funeral oration. He kicks it off by grounding everything in history. He frames Athens not as his own personal project, but as a precious legacy, a free state passed down through the generations, thanks to the courage of their ancestors. Then he gets to the heart of it all. He says Athenian democracy is something special, something new, a model for the rest of the world. A system where it's not about your family name or how rich you are. No, it's about your own merit. It's about what you can contribute. And he culminates in this incredibly powerful, you might even say arrogant claim. Athens, he says, is the school of Greece. Its influence is unstoppable, its power undeniable. He's basically saying, what we've built here is so great, it will be remembered for all time. It's an incredible speech. It's inspiring, even today. But, and this is a really, really important but, we have to square that beautiful rhetoric with the cold, hard reality on the ground. This celebrated democracy, it was built on the backs of slaves. Women had zero political rights. Those so-called allies were basically subjects. And that glorious freedom of speech, well, that was reserved for a select group of male citizens. You can't just build an empire that fast, that aggressively, and not expect somebody to push back. And that somebody was the only other superpower in Greece that could stand up to Athens, the legendary military state of Sparta. And these two cities could not have been more different. Athens was a democracy, a sea power, a trading empire that hid behind its walls. Sparta was a rigid oligarchy, a land power, a military society where the soldiers were the walls. It was like fire and water. You just knew a massive conflict was coming. But Pericles was a smart strategist. He knew Athens couldn't beat the Spartan army on a battlefield. So his plan was actually pretty conservative. He said, let's just hide behind our massive city walls, use our powerful navy to keep food and supplies coming in, and just wait. He wanted to win a long, grinding war of attrition, not some glorious, decisive battle. It was a brilliant strategy, really, but it was completely undone by an enemy nobody saw coming. With the entire countryside population crammed inside the city walls for safety, a horrific plague broke out. It was devastating, killing maybe a fifth of the population. And in 429 BC, the plague claimed its most famous victim, Pericles himself. So, with their visionary leader gone just a few years into a brutal war, what happens to Athens? And how in the world should we remember the man who brought them to this point? Well, without Pericles' steady hand on the rudder, Athens abandons his cautious strategy. A new generation of far more aggressive leaders decides to gamble everything on a massive invasion of Sicily. And it is an absolute, unmitigated disaster. Athens loses thousands of men and hundreds of ships. They never really recover. After decades of war, the city is starved into surrender and its walls are torn down. The empire is gone. Which leaves us with this final, difficult question. Who was Pericles, really? Was he the wise statesman, the brilliant leader whose sound advice was tragically ignored after his death? Or was he a ruthless imperialist whose own ambition put Athens on a collision course with a disaster that he himself created? The answer, just like the man himself, is incredibly complicated.